Hi, and welcome to another edition of Performance Cafe. If you're still watching, you're probably around episode number 5 or 6. I've stopped counting. And welcome back. I'm glad you've stuck it out with me. I appreciate it. So today I've got an interesting topic to discuss. I've for a very long time, in fact more than a decade, worked in a company that was global and we did virtual work. And so with COVID, the move to the whole work from home thing was a lot easier for me than what it was for most. But now as we're starting sort of to come back to life and as lockdown is easing up, I see so much writing in the newspapers and magazines around work from home is terrible for you because as a woman, you have to do all your regular, work, and then you have to do everything that's expected of you from home. And the other articles are all about how terrible it is, to go back to work because of the threat of COVID and back to an old style of work. And, bless them, I suppose that the periodicals have to catastrophize a little bit and create a bit of sensation. But this is actually not very far from the thinking, I think, of so many business owners and leaders, is this, either we co-locate and all work from one place, or we all have remote working environments. I think that there's something that's being missed here. I very successfully, for the years that I worked remotely, worked both. So there were a couple of days a week where we had to go into the office. We did make use of flexi time because in South Africa sometimes traffic can be a bit of a nightmare, and also because we had to be online in the evenings to cater for the later time zones like the Americans, the Canadians and such. The rest of the time we could work from home, and it was really a situation of the best of both worlds. There were a couple of days a week where I knew I could sit and I could focus and really get my work done the way I wanted to, and I tried to plan projects and the types of work that I did when I could work from home, because you do have that opportunity to have uninterrupted work time. The other times, I made sure that I set up meetings with the people that I needed to be in contact with at the office, because I knew what time we would all be there and available for each other. And that really fulfilled a different need. It fulfilled the need of interpersonal connection. It fulfilled the need of being able to just quickly, sort of solve a problem, quickly just take a moment and reflect on something together, brainstorm and come to a solution. It was so interesting. I think it was in Start With Why where Simon Sinek said, that he wasn't sure what the book's name was going to be. And so for 3 weeks, there were emails going back and forth. They got nowhere. And one day he was walking past his publisher's office and he walked in and he spoke to them. And within, I think it was like half an hour, they had the name of the book. And I think that this is the message that I would like to impart today. And that is that I think we must stop looking at this as an either or. I think for extroverts, there's a big place for being at the office, for having that connection with their peers, their colleagues, as well as their management. I think there is something to be said for sitting around a table and quickly hashing out the details, which is a bit more difficult when we're trying to do it in multiple mails. But I think there's just as much to be said for the focus of working from home. I think there's also something to be said for the ability of including team members that we normally wouldn't have access to. I remember one of the biggest privileges was I often was sitting on a team call with people from across the world. And I learned, look, as a South African, we probably have very high levels of tolerance because we have so many cultures in a small country. But I definitely did learn tolerance. I did get to understand the cultural norms of different societies and how they worked and how they thought. And yes, it's frustrating because sometimes we want to do things our way and just get them out and done, especially with me and my lack of patience. But if there's something that's really very educational and that enhances employees and workers when they have access to people from a variety of cultures, a variety of countries, doing things in a variety of ways. So for me, post-COVID, I know the debate rages on remote work or just co-location. I think the either or can be slipped. I think that we can take a look at a hybrid team where certain members of the team come in certain days of the week, or the whole team comes in certain days of the week and know that they have that access to each other. And that the rest of the time they're allowed to work from home, given that they are also helped to have the necessary technology, because that plays a really big part in being successful in these kinds of roles. I think that there is also place for management and for a business to actually shape this, as well as flexi time, around the needs of what would actually make most sense for employees and the way that they need to work together and the hours that they need to work. That's just a general comment. When we take a look at COVID's specific environment, well, we can take it up another notch. I think right now, I've written for my blog for Perform Forward, my company, many blogs, and they seem to be in great demand around the stress that we're seeing around COVID right now, the impact that it's having on our lives, psychological, physiological, financial, spiritual, societal, economic, political. It's enormous what we're facing. And so I think another adjustment could be right now that we take a look at how much can people reasonably do working from home under the current pressures. There's another, I'm a bit of a Simon Sinek fangirl, if you hadn't noticed by now. And one of the examples that he gives is a company that had to cut back on employees because there was some form of recession or whatever the case may be. And he says that what the company did was they allowed their people to decide how much time they could take off unpaid so that they could assist the company in lightening the headcount and the salary burden over a period of time. Don't know why I seem to think it was Costco, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. And when the crisis was over and when the company found its feet again and started doing better financially, they actually were able to pay out all of the unpaid leave that people had taken and pay it back to them. I think that we've got too few examples of this kind of event in the history of business. And I think we need to open our eyes to the possibility that in dealing with COVID, whether we are remote working, co-locating, doing a hybrid, there is also a space for humanity and for people to see what can I do to help the person next to me in order to make this a little easier on them. I hope that today's musing is valuable to you. And as always, please leave your comments or your suggestions for topics in the comments below. I look forward to having another cup of coffee with you at the Performance Cafe.